Okay, lots to get done today because it is a gorgeous fall day and I'm behind in my fall gardening jobs. But first thing is that I'm going to go work on cleaning out the vegetable garden. Okay, the first thing that has to be done is cleaning out the pond. It's got all kinds of leaves and it's pretty gross. I'm going to rescue those plants out of there, and I think it's going to take a while to empty the water out of it. I'm just grabbing any last food there is to get out of here. These peppers are definitely not going to get any riper sitting in here, so I will take them as they are, do something with them. This one is Mad Hatter, and it gets these kind of crazy things, but they're really yummy. Tastes good green, tastes really good when they turn colors, if you can get them to. That's pretty good pepper harvest right there. I thought they were finished. There are a couple of squash down there at the bottom too. Other than that, there's not a lot to get out. I'm going to leave the oregano and thyme and rosemary is still growing. The parsley's still doing okay. We'll leave that. The Swiss chard is doing fabulous. I actually did get a little bit of lettuce growing again. I think some of that is edible. And there's some kale down there. And that's about it in terms of what's left to eat in this joint. So that stuff will stay. Everything else I'm going to pull.
How do you do it to stay so strong? I think I lost it, and everything's been going wrong now. How do you do it? My strength is all gone. I think I lost it, and it's getting too long now. It's getting too long now. The same sorrow is in my mind, but someone said to me, don't worry, you'll be fine. You just have to be cool about it, cool about it. There is no rule about it, rule about it. You just have to be cool about it, cool about it. Stop being cruel to yourself. You just have to be cool about it, cool about it. There is no rule about it, rule about it. You just have to be cool.
So I've been throwing all my plastic plant labels in here just to collect them. And I am going to try to be a little, well, first of all, I always find them in my compost. And as it turns out, plastic plant labels do not compost. So I'm going to try to hang on to them this year and reuse them, because that seems like the responsible thing to do. So my plan for the container pond for the year is to, obviously I'm emptying out, cleaning it out, and the pitcher plant is not hardy, so I'm gonna try to bring that inside, I think, because I think I can overwinter that inside. And then the arrowhead and the water lily are hardy, and I'm just gonna heel those into one of the vegetable garden beds and see how they do for the winter. I have nothing to lose, right? And then I'm not sure about the 4-leaf clover, if that's hardy or not. I'm thinking it's not, but I'll probably try to heel that in anyways, even though that's a really cheap plant. But I'll probably try to heel it in and just see what happens, because I'm doing this all for the first time, so I don't know. Yeah, and then probably what I'll do is I'll just sort of roll this out of the way, because it is really nice in winter to have a super clear path through here, even though I can get around it with the wheelbarrow. So I think that's probably what I'll do, just so that I don't end up with a, pond full of leaves all winter. or at least flip it over. So that's the pond plan. By the way, this was super fun. I'm glad I did it. I think it went really well for my first year. Actually, I think it went really well for any year. I don't know what I would have done differently, to be honest with you. It was really fun to experiment with this and just try a different kind of gardening than I've done in the past. I'm sad that it's over for this year. So all the stuff I take out of the garden goes into the compost pile, but bit of a problem with the compost. So I unfortunately only have this one bin, and that is not really the best way to do compost. So all of this in here underneath this top layer, this is all finished compost. So what I'm doing is digging out the finished compost, putting it in the garden beds as I clean them out, because you got to replenish that top layer. Soil just disappears. And in the meantime, I've been putting everything that I take out of this garden, I've been putting it back here, just in this really ugly pile, because I don't want to, I'm just going to clean that out, and I don't want to have anything in there while I get that out. So I will chop up all of this stuff and along with this before I put it in there to try to help it break down quicker. But this is just sort of a sign that I need to have a better compost system. Okay, so ideally you'd have a 3 compost bin system. That would work great. I just have the one. If I could make this into 2, that'd work great too, because then I could be loading this new stuff into the new one, all while I'm taking the finished compost out of this. As it is right now, I'm just throwing all the green stuff that's coming out of the garden behind the compost in a big pile while I wait to empty out this compost bin. So I'm just kind of making the best of what I have, and sometimes that's what you got to do. Anyways, I don't do anything special with compost. Basically, I try to layer browns and greens as best I can. I try to get that balance right. Sometimes if your compost doesn't get hot enough, you definitely have too many browns. So you got to throw in some greens, and sometimes I use alfalfa cubes, rehydrated alfalfa cubes. I buy them at the feed store, a giant, like 20-pound bag. It's for horses. It lasts me like 3 years. Sometimes I'll throw some of that in there because there's a lot of nitrogen in alfalfa, so it'll get the compost pile really going. Or if your compost pile gets slimy, you have too many greens in there, so then you just got to add some browns, and that can be, you know, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but that could be leaves, that could be shredded newspaper, that could be shredded paper. It can be all kinds of, it could be wood shavings, it can be all kinds of stuff. It's just a carbon-rich source is what you're looking for there. And then you try to water it and turn it when you can, and it kind of does its thing. Am I great about it? Nope. Do I get a good amount of compost from it? Yeah. I mean, I really do. And I wish I got more. So that's why you get out of compost what you put into it. If you want a lot of compost, you got to kind of refine your system. And if you want it quick, you got to be on top of that turning and the watering and the whole enchilada. But you can make it what you want it to be. So just compost. I mean, you got to get rid of this stuff anyways. There's no reason to be throwing any of this stuff in the landfill. Just make a pile. And by the way, I have never once had any sort of problem with any kind of vermin in my compost. I know people are worried about rodents and things like that. I've never once had an issue. If anything, the only issue I have is that sometimes a deer come over and grab like the kitchen scraps out of here, but whatever, it's being used at least then. So anyways, that's where I'm at with composting.
How do you do it? Your confidence is so high. I think I lost mine, and I'm fed up of being too kind. How do you do it to not show what's inside? In my case, I show it all the time. It's getting out of line now. It says have to be cool about it, cool about it. There is no rule about it, rule about it. You just have to be cool about it, cool about it. Stop being cruel to yourself. You just have to be cool about it, cool about it. There is no rule about it, rule about it. You just have to be cool about it, cool about it. Stop being cruel to yourself.
Well, I'm officially running out of time here. I have a thing I have to get to. Don't we always have just a thing that interrupts gardening? But the last thing I want to do is get some bulbs in the small raised beds. So this year I'm doing something different. This year I'm going to plant some of these. These are a bulb mix. Longfield Gardens teamed up with Flirty Fleurs, which is this amazing flower designer. You should check her out on Instagram, so inspirational. And she created these collections of bulbs. So there's daffodils in there. This one has tulips and daffodils. And one of them has some hyacinth in it. So they're a mixture of bulbs, and they should all bloom at more or less the same time. So the idea is you can create a similar bouquet to what she created. I'll never be able to make anything that pretty, but the combination themselves, I mean, one of the best ways to figure out what plants work well together is to pick a bouquet, and then you kind of see. So that's the same concept in reverse, sort of. We're starting with a bouquet, and I'm going to plant those plants, and they will look good in the beds, but they'll also look good if I pull them out. So I'm just going to quickly get those popped in the ground. I'm going to plant between 90 and 100 bulbs per bed, so I'm really going to pack them in there. And hopefully we'll have a beautiful spring display. The sensible way to do this would have been to plant the bulbs and then top this bed off with compost, but that's not what I did, so you make the best of it. This'll work. All right, you guys, that's it for me today. I gotta fly. You probably have to fly. If you have questions about anything you saw today, garden cleanup, compost, anything like that, give me a holler in the comments, and we will see you soon. Thanks, guys.